pictures that you're seeing or what you have seen this afternoon that might give us a clue? What does the NTSB do first thing when they get here now?
Well, they'll go after the black boxes for sure. They'll go after the recordings in the control tower. They'll look at the records of the pilots, and that'll be that. And then they'll look at the wreckage to see where they were at, and then that's where it's going to start. And usually, an investigation like this, even though you might speculate like we're doing right now, and we can speculate that something's happened, it'll take the investigators months before they really come up with a conclusion on actually what happened.
We remember waiting for other different plane crashes, waiting for many months. But however, you did mention that this aircraft has all the latest technology in terms of the voice recorder, the black box, so they presumably will have that information more quickly, correct?
They will have it pretty quick, but just for their protection and so they don't get anything wrong, because this was most likely a 135 charter flight. They will have to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, not to make any mistakes.
And on
because
that,
this was a revenue flight.
On that point, going through everything, how long, if you had to guess, would they need to preserve that kind of as a crime scene on the side of I-75 there and keep everybody away before the road is usable again?
That's a good question. That would be your highway patrol people there. They'd have to mark off that area for a while before and let the FAA get over there for their investigation. I would think that it looks like it's off to the side of the road, so I would think they would get a couple lanes going over there.
Okay, so they don't need to close off a huge swath of that road to continue to finish what they're doing.
I would say, there was a touchdown point and an end point where this plane hit and then stopped. So until the FAA or National Transportation Safety Board get there and actually mark it off, they'll mark down how long the skid marks are. It'll tell them how fast they were going. It'll give them all the information. So it might be a while, but if I was in that area, I'd probably avoid that road for a day or two.
Okay, can we go back a little bit here? Let's go back to Columbus, Ohio, Fred, before this plane even took off. And you're the pilot and the co-pilot of this plane. We assume there's two pilots on a plane of this size. Am I correct?
You're correct. This is a large airplane. This is a large corporate aircraft.
Okay, so what would those two pilots? What would these two pilots do before they take off? What kind of safety checks would they do just to make sure everything's working well with this plane? Or do you just get into the seat and take off?
No, you're doing flight planning. You're figuring out how long is my flight going to take me? How much fuel am I going to burn? What's my weight and balance? How many passengers I got? How much baggage do I have? So you're going to have a lot of information that these pilots are putting together to make a safe flight. Now, it depends. One of the things I would be curious about, if I was Mr. FAA man, did they purchase fuel in Ohio State? Or did they try and get round-trip fuel from Fort Lauderdale Executive, Ohio State University, Naples, and back? Where was their fuel stops if they had one? Now we talked about this plane being a larger aircraft. This is a 4,000-mile airplane. So this plane can fly with full fuel almost 4,000 miles in a no-wind condition. So most likely they didn't take off topped off with fuel, depending on the weight and balance and when they left and the temperature and all of those other things. So I would be looking at that information. Did they purchase fuel in Ohio State?
Right.
That would be another question.
Explain that to the non-aviation folks around here. You don't top off like you do in your car. You try to carry as little weight as possible when you're flying, correct?
No, well, okay. So when you're flying an airplane and you got passengers on board, right? Your plane can go, say, all right, the plane I fly flies 3,000 miles. So when I fly from point A to point B, and I've only gone 1,000 miles, I have enough fuel to fly back home without purchasing fuel.
Okay.
So now I've done a 2,000-mile leg, but my plane, if I topped it off, can go 3,000 miles. So I've got a lot more fuel in the tanks when I land.
Okay.
The question is, how much fuel did this plane have on it when it left? Did they get fuel in Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
And how much fuel did they have when they left Ohio? That's the question right there. And again, this is all speculation because maybe they did hit birds. I don't know, but this is where your investigation is going to lean towards.
Mm-hmm.
What are the layers of checks and balances? It's a fuel calculation, correct, that you make about how much you're going to have. Who checks the calculation?
To be honest with you, everything relies on the PIC, pilot in command. If you are the captain of the airplane, it all falls on your shoulders. It's your responsibility as captain to make sure that you've got enough fuel on board to get to point A to point B. And when you're a 135 operator, which is a charter company, okay, so somebody pays them money to fly them from point A to point B, you have even more restrictions on how much fuel you can have or supposed to have on board. You know, is it a wet runway? I need more runway, so I need less fuel, or I need alternates and things like that. So it is the captain, the pilot in command. Everything's going to fall on his shoulders as far as did he put enough fuel on board? Maybe everything he did was perfect, and then at the last minute he hit a flock of birds, and then and then it's all on you, to try and save the day. But, it's speculation. I don't want to say that it was absolutely a fuel exhaustion because, you know what? You might see that video where he's hitting birds.
Right.
It's a very, very rare situation when you've got two engines going down at the same time. Very rare.
But in your mind, at least so we're narrowing it down, it's likely in your mind one or the other, fuel or birds. You don't see another scenario that we haven't talked about.
I guess we could speculate all day long. We did have that commercial pilot with Alaska Air try and pull the engines, shut the engines down in flight. But I would say that that's also extremely rare. I mean, it's crazy, when people do things like that. But most likely, you're leaning at these two things, fuel exhaustion or a bird strikes, and then, like I said, if we look at the cockpit voice recorder, we'll know exactly what happened.
Yeah. All right. Well, Fred Rizzo, a pilot who gave us some very good insight into what may have happened here. Again, as he mentioned many times, we're just speculating here because the NTSB will be the ultimate authority. Fred, we just want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insight and expertise.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.